Welcome back to the C programming language in action. In this module, I'm going to show you how to get started with GCC, the GNU compiler collection. If you're running on a Unix operating system, such as the Mac or the Apple OS X operating system or one of the Linux variants, then it's likely that it's either already installed or very easy to get at any rate. On Windows, it's a different story. GCC is not designed to run on Windows and only does so with some help. Fortunately, a developer on the Visual C++ team at Microsoft has kindly provided a very simple distribution that includes practically everything you need to get started. Let's take a look. Newen.net. And in the C++ column, click on the MinGW distro link. MinGW is a popular port of GCC to Windows. Stefan has simply taken that port, included various commonly used tools and libraries, compiled it all, and packaged it up for easy installation. First, I'll click on the MinGW 11.6 executable link to download the distribution. This is just a self-extracting executable powered by the indispensable 7-zip tool. I'll tell it to extract to my C drive. It will in fact create a subfolder called MinGW in whatever location you point it to. And when it's done extracting, it'll also be done installing. And we can also ignore the browser from here on out. Great. First, I'll head on over to the MinGW directory. Now, remember that in the previous segment, we didn't really install anything. We simply copied a bunch of files to this directory. To gain access to the tools and build environment, this distribution provides a batch file that will set it up for us in this console window. There's also another batch file that'll open up a new command prompt window, which might be handy if you want to create a shortcut on the desktop. Anyway, now you can run G++ with a version option to check the version of GCC that you've acquired. In my case, it's 4.8.2, the latest version at this time. The GNU compiler collection, GCC, as its name suggests, is a collection of compilers, and G++ is just a front end for the C++ toolchain. There's also a GCC command that maps more directly to the C toolchain. Now, let's head on over to the temp directory, where I created that simple C program in the previous module to test the Visual C++ compiler. I'll just edit the source file to say hello from GCC. There we go. Now that I've saved and closed it, we can figure out how to compile this with GCC. We could start with simply gcc sample.c. No complaints, so that's good, but what happened? Well, for historical reasons, GCC produced an executable called A. And there we see the expected message, so we know it worked. But at the very least, we should try to crank up the warning level. It's not quite as simple as with Visual C++. We can and should add the warning level all option. I guess I should try that with the actual compiler. Despite its name, all only turns on some warnings. Still, it's helpful. Here, we're seeing a warning about the fact that our main function doesn't return. Despite this warning, the compiler faithfully generated the resulting executable. This is only a warning after all. Let's look at the program again. This is a perfectly valid C++ program where C++ makes it explicit that main need not return a value explicitly. The committee responsible for C is conscious of the benefits of C++ compatibility So if you tell GCC to adopt C99 compatibility, this warning actually goes away again. Now we could go further. Remember that all doesn't really mean all. So you can add extra and even pedantic. Anyway, for a slightly more useful option, let's consider how we might override the weird default file name. Let's be explicit and name our output. GCC will now produce an executable called sample.exe. There we go. And that's all there is to getting started with GCC, the GNU compiler collection on Windows. Yes, there's more to it, oh so much more, but that should get you started. The challenge is where you go from here with GCC depends very much on your target platform, the specific toolchain or amalgamation you happen to be using, and whether you're targeting your local machine or cross-compiling for some other platform, perhaps an embedded device for which you're preparing some firmware, and so on. All of these things and more affect how you might compile, distribute, debug, and maintain the project going forward. One of the challenges with GCC, and there are many, is that there is no official distribution. That means that many companies and individuals provide their own distributions, such as the one we explored in this module. These often don't work together, or are hard to incorporate. Still, if you're looking to try your hand at GCC on Windows, you can't go wrong with the distribution that may be found at newen.net. Created by Stefan Lawawade, it's about the simplest way to get started with GCC on Windows. He's packaged up MinGW, which is a minimal GNU distribution for Windows. But there's nothing minimal about the GCC command line options.